This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Spain is going through a dramatic political moment, following an inconclusive election in July as the Conservative election winner fails to secure enough support to become Prime Minister. And acting Socialist Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, if he is to remain in power, needs the support of hardline Catalan separatists, who are demanding an amnesty for those facing charges for their failed 2017 push for independence. So in this video, we'll go through the story so far, explain Sanchez's Catalan dilemma, and look at why he may or may not strike a deal with the controversial kingmakers. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. Spain was always going to hold an election this year, with a deadline in December. However, regional and local elections held at the end of May resulted in heavy losses for the ruling socialists and their junior coalition partner, Unidas Podemos. As such, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez called an early election, months ahead of schedule, in order to cut short the right wing's victory lap and force the Spanish left wing to end its infighting and unite. A big gamble that basically paid off. The Conservative People's Party, who had widely been expected to win and form a coalition with the far-right Vox, did indeed emerge as the largest party. But Vox underperformed and PSOE held their own. In fact, the combined seats won by the People's Party, Vox, and the limited number of small right-leaning regional parties ended up totalling 172, a little short of the 176 needed for a majority. Meanwhile, PSOE, their leftist ally Sumar, and the rest of what can be considered the left-leaning bloc ended up on 171 seats, effectively leaving the Congress of Deputies in a dead heat between left and right. And crucially, it left the hardline Catalan separatist party, Together for Catalonia, also known as Junts, as the potential kingmaker, as its 7 seats would be enough to make either Pedro Sanchez or the People's Party leader Alberto Núñez Feijóo Prime Minister. Towards the end of August, and after a period of deliberation, Spain's King Felipe invited Feijóo to try and form a government, as he's the leader of the largest party. The problem for Feijóo is that his attempts to form a government was effectively doomed from the outset because of the inclusion of Vox in his potential coalition. Vox's hardline opposition to Spain's system of regionally devolved political power and its previous move to try and ban pro-independence parties means that the vast majority of regional parties in parliament are against any government formation involving Vox. On Wednesday, Spain's Congress of Deputies voted on Feijóo's investiture and rejected him with 178 votes against and 172 in favour, meaning he only won the support of his own party's 137 deputies, Vox's 33 deputies, and the 2 individual deputies from the UPN and the Canarian coalition. Feijóo will get a second and final chance with another vote on Friday, this time only requiring a simple majority. However, he's widely expected to lose this vote too. So with Feijóo's premiership out of the question, it means that either Pedro Sanchez will garner enough support to remain in post, or the country will hold another election. Feijóo's failure begins a 2-month countdown for Sanchez to negotiate with other parties and win an investiture vote, or else Spaniards will go to the polls again in January. If Sanchez wants to win his investiture vote, then it will require him to secure the support of the smaller regionalist parties, and most importantly, strike some kind of deal with Junts to win over their support. For Sanchez and his allies, there is cause for a degree of optimism. His hopes of staying on as Prime Minister were buoyed in August when Francina Armengol, the PSOE's candidate for Parliamentary Speaker, was elected with the support of Junts. This came after the incumbent socialists struck a deal with pro-Catalan independence parties, including Junts, agreeing to concessions on the use of minority languages like Catalan, Basque and Galician in the Spanish Parliament, and also to push for the adoption of these as official EU languages. However, Junts made clear that their support was purely for the parliamentary speakership, and that supporting Sanchez's investiture would come at a higher price. They want nothing less than an amnesty for those still wanted and facing charges for their involvement in the 2017 Catalan independence referendum, which was deemed illegal by Spain's constitutional court. Among those is Junts founder and ex-Catalan president Carles Puigdemont, who remains in self-imposed exile in Belgium, but it also could include, according to separatist groups, up to 1,400 others facing charges of things like disobedience and embezzlement. Amid rumours of a potential amnesty law, Sanchez has largely remained silent other than reiterating that he'll only negotiate within the confines of the Spanish constitution, and also recently said that he's seeking to turn the page on the 2017 crisis. But agreeing to a widespread amnesty would be a risky and deeply controversial move. Between 40,000 and 60,000 people marched in Madrid on Sunday in opposition to the potential amnesty for Catalan separatists, with opposition leader Feijóo attacking Sanchez for potentially giving in to, quote, blackmail, and describing an amnesty as an unjustified and unethical attack on the rule of law and the separation of powers. As well as opening Sanchez up to political attacks from the right, an amnesty also risks discomfort in his own ranks. Several high-profile PSOE figures have spoken out against an amnesty, including former Prime Minister Felipe González and his former Deputy Prime Minister Alfonso Guerra, and ex-European Commissioner Joaquín Almunia, who said the separatist in Junts should carry out some serious criticism of its own behaviour in 2017 before amnesty is considered. Nevertheless, in addition to the language changes this year, Pedro Sanchez has shown an openness to extending olive branches to Catalan separatists in the past. In 2021, he pardoned 9 Catalan separatist leaders for their role in the 2017 push for independence. And in 2022, Sanchez's government reformed the penal code to scrap the crime of sedition for one of public disorder. These were controversial at the time, but arguably the benefits outweighed the backlash for Sanchez, as the regional Socialist Party surged in Catalonia in this year's election, while pro-independence parties overall suffered a decline. An amnesty deal, however, could prove a lot more controversial due to its contested legality, the involvement of particularly divisive figures like Puigdemont, and also the fact that this would be a very obvious quid pro quo. Another consideration for Sanchez is that even if he strikes an amnesty deal with Junts, wins an investiture vote, and remains Prime Minister, his government would not be a stable one. The parliamentary arithmetic would remain the same, so he'd need to rely on pro-Catalan independence parties, including Junts, in order to govern effectively. An amnesty deal is one thing, but it doesn't address the elephant in the room, a Catalan independence referendum that pro-independence parties will demand in exchange for any continued parliamentary support. With that in mind, Sanchez may prefer not to strike a deal with Junts, which would mean taking a gamble on another election, which, if the last election is anything to go by, is all to play for. Things are expected to change with a story like this, so make sure you stay on top of updates. That way you know what's going on, and let's be honest, it always feels great to stay on top of things. Even within TLDR, a few of us have been brushing up our InDesign skills in order to create the newspaper we're currently working on. It turns out that making a professional-looking newspaper is pretty difficult, so we headed to Skillshare to take their course on the topic. Unlike when I tried to learn InDesign for another never-released project a few years ago, this time I was guided through the process quickly and effectively, and this time the project will actually see the light of day thanks to Skillshare's incredibly easy-to-follow guides. It's not just that either. You likely already knew Skillshare for classes on things like photography, editing and illustration, but Skillshare also has hundreds of career-focused classes too. We all know at this stage that traditional jobs aren't one size fits all. I mean, I finished university and came straight into a job at a YouTube channel. That's not necessarily the path that you want to take, but the courses on Skillshare can help you design a career to fit you. There's courses on everything from how to start a business to maximising your workflow or how to grow in e-commerce. Another course that Jack's actually taking to help with the newspaper project. And if you use our link, you can get access to all of that for free. That's right, the first 1,000 people to use the link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare.